Here we go again.
No, not again.
You've been fooled.
How long have we been doing this?
Once more unto the
Again until we're both dead.
Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews with connections in mind. The Fate of the Furious is the 8th film in the Fast and the Furious franchise. I've already reviewed Fast 5, which is the point in the franchise where it has reinvented itself from its traditional street racing origins to a more heist-oriented franchise with car elements thrown in. And this is another departure from the franchise, as it is the first film since Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift to be filmed without the presence of Paul Walker, who unfortunately passed away in 2013. Now, this movie review will contain spoilers of Fate of the Furious, as well as certain plot-related spoilers of other films and film franchises. There will be a full list in the description below. And if you haven't seen Fate of the Furious yet, or any of the films listed below, and want to wait until you have, stop the video at this point and come back later. But with these things in mind, though, let's begin. So, Fate of the Furious finds Vin Diesel's Dominic Toretto and Michelle Rodriguez's Letty Ortiz in Cuba on their honeymoon after the events of Furious 7. They're in their street racing world, and outside of the Cuba, we find that a terrorist organization is rearing its head. The Rock's character, Luke Hobbs, has to bring in the old team back together in order to fight this terrorist organization. But Dominic Toretto has been already contacted by that organization, led by Charlize Theron, playing the hacker Cypher. And this sees the team get betrayed by Dominic Toretto, and The Rock ends up in prison. The rest of the team is essentially on the run, off the grid, and Dominic Toretto is now in service of Cypher for reasons that are not yet known at this point, though in the rest of the film that will soon become apparent that Cypher has some leverage on him, and it's up to the rest of the team to remove that leverage and save Dominic Toretto and stop Cypher's plan from going into effect. Now, this film has some several obvious film parallels, so let's start with those obvious ones and then go from there. First, let it be said that this film franchise has come a long way in the area of car-based stunts. We go from the first Fast and the Furious film, where the biggest stunt there was the famous train jumping of the train tracks between the Charger and the Supra, to this shot from the trailer of the submarine breaching the ice surface and flinging cars every which way. It's a really cool shot, I admit, but something you've seen before. I point you to this shot from How to Train Your Dragon 2, in which the Alpha Dragon rises out of the ocean and flings boats left and right. Another impressive feat. That does not necessarily diminish the awesome stunt in Fate of the Furious, but it is something you've seen before. Next, this film continues the trend set by Fast 5 of using exotic set pieces and more worldly plot devices in order to to form the story. Whereas in the original 4 films, it was relatively small time with various drug organizations being the main criminals of this of whatever movie is there. Whereas Fast 5 and Beyond marks the transition and departure from that origin, where Fast 5 is indeed about a drug lord, but it's set in Rio de Janeiro, the exotic set piece, and then continuing on with Furious 6, which involves spy intrigue and high stakes international arms dealers. And Furious 7 involves the God's Eye, which is a boon for terrorists and a window into the world of computer hacking and the dangers of modern technology in cyber terrorism. And that continues into Fate of the Furious, which involves, again, the God's Eye, but also a villain who uses those computer hacking skills in order to wreak havoc on other locations. And it also brings us to several exotic set pieces, such as the newly opened Cuba. Now, this is very familiar to those who are familiar with the Mission Impossible franchise with Tom Cruise. That franchise has also seen several films worth of spy intrigue and exotic set pieces and vehicle-based action sequences. And if you put these side by side, you'll see a lot of very similar scenes put together, especially with the more recent Mission Impossible movies, such as Rogue Nation and Ghost Protocol, with the more recent Fast and Furious franchise, such as Furious 7 and Fate of the Furious. Also, Fate of the Furious features the character of Dominic Toretto turning against his family, that which has the family theme which has been established over the entire length of the franchise. He turns against it. It's supposed to be the whammy that propels this entire movie. Now, this is not a new plot twist in movies in general, of course, but a fairly recent example of this would probably be Captain America Civil War, in which we also see a tight-knit collection of superheroes, one of whom has to break off from the group and then starts attacking, ends up on the wrong side of the others, and then the rest of the movie involves these family members clashing against each other when they don't necessarily want to be clashing against each other. Next, this film also has a certain amount of heist elements that are very familiar to the Ocean's 11. As I've already stated in my review of Fast 5, Fast 5 is the first of the true heist Fast and the Furious films, where we also see the misdirection in the first go-through of the plot of what we're shown on screen, where we think everything's going horribly wrong, but then the movie backtracks and then shows us flashbacks of how the team planned everything down to the last detail, and what we thought was stuff going to hell is actually what it is supposed to be, and the plan worked all along. Now, this is very similar, and again, Ocean's 11 did this very beautifully, where we see things as the villain is supposed to see them, but then the movie backtracks and shows us how everything was done so that the money from the vault could be removed and our heroes of the Ocean's 11 can go free. Now, this is very similar to what happened in Fate of the Furious, where we see that Dominic Toretto is on his... We've seen many plot elements happen up until the very climactic scene on the ice with the submarine. And we've seen, especially, most notably, Deckard Shaw getting shot and presumably killed. And another meeting with Helen Mirren's character, who makes a brief appearance. Dominic Toretto goes to meet Helen Mirren. We don't know for what. We get some very cryptic exchange between these two. But now at the end, we get to see the movie backtrack and then show us all the payoff that went towards going into this. We see that Deckard Shaw, Jason Statham's character, is not actually dead, but is alive. And he is he's recruited his brother Owen to sneak aboard the Cypher's plane in order to rescue the leverage that Cypher has against Dom. I say leverage because if you're going to go see Fate of the Furious, I don't recommend spoiling that bit of the plot, just because if I spoil that, then really there's not a whole lot of point of seeing the movie at that point, just because that's really the only big whammy of this series, even though it's kind of telegraphed throughout. So, but aside from that, we get to see all the details that went into him organizing this rescue, and so he can remove the leverage, and then Dominic Toretto can switch from being on the reluctant bad guy to the good guy once again. So there you have it. Those are the main parallels for Fate of the Furious with other films that have gone before. Now, would I recommend you see this movie? If you're a fan of the Fast and the Furious franchise, I would say yes. You don't want to miss this, though there are some caveats to it. And there's some things that I just have to mention in going into this. First off, The scene in that's been so hyped in the trailers is the climax at the end, where our team is racing across the ice and they're being chased by enemies on cars, and then of course the submarine breaches the surface. Now, it is stated in this in the movie that they have to the team has to prevent this submarine from getting into open waters, and they have 10 miles from this base where the submarine was to a lock where they can hopefully close it off and then strand the submarine inside this bay. Now, I feel like this is in direct reaction to the fan criticism of Furious 6, in which we see a very similar chase happen with a plane on the runway. They never say how long this runway is, but with the length of time that this chase goes on, that it has to be the longest runway ever created. It's probably like 10 or 15 miles, we'll never know. And yeah, I feel like that's just a fan criticism that the filmmakers reacted to, and they just put in that little slip of dialogue. Also, this is one, as I said before, this is the first film since Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift to be completely without Paul Walker's character, Brian O'Connor. And this film is definitely missing Brian O'Connor at this point, and you really feel that lack of chemistry between Vin Diesel and Paul Walker that made the other films so great. And during the production of this film, though, Vin Diesel did say he wanted to take it in a different turn, a different direction, this film, from films that have come before. And indeed they did. The scenes between Vin Diesel and Charlize Theron's character are very dark. They're way darker than what other Fast and Furious films have done previously. And it is definitely a more gritty Fast and Furious, but at the same time, it also kind of removes some of the fun. And that's what made me, leaving the theater, feel kind of disappointed with this film. I can't say that I disliked the film. I really liked all the cars, the beautiful cars, and the stunt work that went into it. And especially some of the scenes where it depicts cars getting remotely hacked and then doing things that without people in the driver's seat, or people within the driver's seat who are unable to control their cars, it takes it to ludicrous extremes, but it's just enough truth in there that makes me glad that I own a car that is basically unhackable. I really did enjoy those aspects, but at the same time, that dark element kind of tamps down the fun elements and the absurdity that you come to expect from the Fast and the Furious franchise. Now, I also have to point out, and I can't stress this enough, the scene at the end with the submarine. This is going to get into some plot points, but I can't help it. The whole point of Charlize Theron's plan is she wants to use an EMP device that she stole, an electromagnetic pulse device, which knocks out all electronics of this Russian sub-base, to get at a submarine that has a nuclear missile on it, and she wants to launch at least one nuke, and then to put the world superpowers on alert so that they can essentially get along and keep them accountable. But there's on screen there's a diagram that the good team uses to identify the submarine. They designate it as an Akula class submarine. Now, as a student of Cold War history, I know that there is an Akula class submarine that is an attack submarine. It does not have nuclear missiles on it, and that's the sub that they show as having a nuclear missile on it. However, if they had shown it as a Typhoon class submarine, which in the Russian designation is the Akula class, then that would have made a whole lot of sense. Like the Typhoon class as seen in Hunt for Red October. But they didn't, and I feel like that's just the product of someone doing their research, and they could have just done any other class of submarine. But because I know that, then it just takes away that little bit of fun. And it's the scene that you're supposed to say, like, no, that can't possibly happen, to, no, that actually can't happen. So you get the difference? Yeah, it's just one of those things that you really don't want to know going into those films. So whether that taints your enjoyment of that scene, that's up to you. It just made me add a little wrinkle in my brain, but overall, I did enjoy the way the film shot that entire climax chase scene. Overall, I would say I would recommend seeing this film, especially if you're a Fast and Furious franchise fan. But if you're not, then you should know going in that this is the kind of movie that you shut your brain off. You go in to see fast cars, things going boom, and that's really what you're going to end up seeing. If you go in knowing that, then you're going to be just fine. But if you're here for in addition to the Fast and the Furious franchise lore, then you're going to be in for a pleasing entry, though not necessarily the best. So there you have it. There's my review of Fate of the Furious. Now, first of all, let's just do a couple of announcements right off the bat. First of all, a great thank you for the Flick Pig, John Flickinger, for giving my channel a shout out. I know you didn't have to, but I hope you appreciate the gifts, and thank you for all those who are fans of the Flick Pick who came to subscribe to this channel through the Flick Pick and seeing that as fan unboxings. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate any audience I get, so thank you for subscribing. You pushed me over double digits. Woohoo! Next, just the sneak peek of what should come ahead in the coming weeks. Look for a review of The Iron Giant coming up for no particular reason other than I just rewatched it and I really wanted to do a You've Seen Before review of it. Or you could go throughout of the last two movies I did had Vin Diesel in it, and Iron Giant has Vin Diesel in it, so there's another connection for you. That will come hopefully before the May 5th release of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which will have a You've Seen Before review and a written review. Also, check out my written review of Fate of the Furious, which I posted to IMDb. I will put the link down below. So after Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 on May 5th, look next for a review of Alien vs. Predator, which is one of my personal guilty pleasure movies, and will tie in nicely with the May 19th release of Alien Covenant, which I'll be doing a review of. And then finally, May 26th, we'll show Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man Tell No Tales, which I'll be doing a review of as well. So there's a sneak peek of what should be coming ahead. Thank you all for watching, and just remember, there's nothing new under the sun, and yes, you have seen it before. So I'll see you next time.